Now, to do this, what I'm going to be doing over here is I'll pull up the diagram for it. I think I have it right here. Save it in your folder. All right, let me explain this to you guys. What I've done over here in this particular topology, this is your physical topology. This is the physical connections. So I have a switch over here, which is connected to R5, which is my internet router. It's in VLAN 20, 192.1.20.x. This is R5, E00, E01. E00, if you take a look at it, is connecting to ASA1. E01 is connecting to Ethernet 1 of ASA2. On the switch side, to perform this, if you take a look at the logical setup, what have I done over here? I've set up a port channel with a switch. You get my point? So this guy and this guy on ASA1 and ASA2 are going to be in a port channel connected towards switch 3. Similarly, on the inside, I have another port channel with this switch. But you notice that I'm using the same interfaces on the outside towards the same switch, same interface on the inside towards the internal switch. And this is how it looks on the inside. Again, a port channel with this other switch. I'm using two switches over here, but technically you could have used a single switch and done VLANs and port channels over there, but you're doing redundancy over here. I wouldn't want to do this with a single switch with VLANs. I would definitely want to do it with two switches. And as who was saying, Parkos, as what he was talking about is you still have a single point of failure on the switch side. I would actually do a VPC if you have the capability of doing that, or some type of stacking capability that allows you the ability to have redundancy at that level. You get my point? I'm not doing those type of things over here. That's beyond the scope of this class, but you should do that. That is correct, because it uses the same interface. When I configure Ethernet 2 on ASA1, it's actually configuring Ethernet 2 on all the interfaces. All the Ethernet 2 interfaces of all the ASAs. So if I had 5 or 4 ASAs, they all will be Ethernet 2s. So I just configure Ethernet 2 on ASA1, the master. It will configure Ethernet 2 of all the other ASAs. That was also the case with failover, by the way. It's no different there. Good so far, guys? So how do I set this up? The physical topology is there. This is what it looks like. This is the switch outside. This is a switch inside. ASA1 and ASA2. This is going to be my cluster control link. I'm just connecting it directly over here between ASA1 and ASA2. I would recommend that you put a switch over there. Gives you more scalability. Tomorrow you want to add another ASA, you will not be able to do it with this, but if you have connected into a switch, you always have the capability of expanding it. You can connect another port, put in the same VLAN. Good so far, guys? So let's bring it up now. All right, what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to start with the cluster control link. What I want to do here is set up or show you the commands to set up your cluster, the actual cluster between the two devices. How do you go about doing it? Let's do it in Notepad. Cluster configuration. So I'll break it down into steps that like I have been doing. Configure the CCL cluster, cluster configuration on both the firewalls. All right, I'm going to do this on the master, and then I'm going to do it on the client. First thing that I need to do is change or set the mode. Now over here, the way you set the mode is by using a command called, let me make sure I don't have any config on it. See, it's a blank device. Although it's a blank device, the cluster mode does not get, even if you do a write erase, it keeps that. So if I had done a cluster interface mode span the last time round, it would have stayed as that. Even if I do a write erase, it would still keep it. Just keep that in mind. So whatever mode that you set up in the past, it stays with that. Even if you do a write erase, it'll always retain that in its config. Somehow probably puts it into a different place in NVRAM and uses that. So what did it tell you? Cluster interface mode is span, and that's what I was setting it to. But in our case, I'm going to put that command in there for you guys, so you know the first thing that you would need to do over here. Let's do ASA1 first. Step A, configure what? The cluster interface mode. What's the command for that? Cluster interface dash mode span. Good so far, guys? But I want you guys to see that it is already set, because the last lab that I've done over here was still in cluster mode. If I go to ASA2, it'll give me the same thing. Although it's blank. You there? You back? So although it's a blank device, even though it does not have anything, cluster interface mode would still be what? Span. Because of my last lab. So ASA2, I would do the same. Yeah, that's what I was doing. So if I didn't want this mode, I wanted, what's the other mode that I told you that you have? Individual interface. So if I change it, it'll tell you. See? Change to individual mode successful. I don't want to do that. I want to do span. Now I change it to what? Span. What I was trying to tell you was the last time I do a mode, it stays with it even if you do a write erase. Got it? Now, once this is done, the next thing I need to do is set up the interface that is connecting the two ASAs to each other. How do I do that? Bring it up. So we'll do this over here. Step 2, enable basically no shut the cluster configuration link. In my case, I believe it is gig 0/0, but I'll check. No, it's Ethernet 0. Good. And the last, but the most important one, is configure the cluster group configuration. This is where you put in IPs and all that type of stuff. So far, so good, guys. Let me bring the interfaces up as well as we go along. So ASA2 and ASA1 and ASA2, both are done. Next, I am going to set up my cluster group configuration. The way you do that is cluster group, give it a name, whatever you want to call it, ABC, anything you want. The first thing that you want to do is configure each cluster group member with a local unit name, like the name for the device. That is done by using a command called local unit, and give it a name, whatever you want to call it. Let's say primary. All right? Just a name. You get my point? So once that's done, the next thing I need to do is set the IP address. Unlike the failover where I set the IP address on the active device for all the other devices, for the cluster interface, each device needs to be manually configured with an IP address. So let me show you that. Cluster interface E0 IP, let's say 10.10.10.1, 255.255.255.0. I'm just setting the IP address of what? This device. So when I go to the second device, ASA2, I'm going to set the device with an IP address of 10.10.10.10.2. Unlike failover, where I would set that IP address on the active device for both of them. You get my point? The next thing is the priority. Lower the better. Goes till 100, I'm setting it to 1. 1 through 100 is what it is. If I want this one to be the master, I'll set the priority to be low. Optionally, just like you had with, what do you call it? With the failover, you can set a key for validating your cluster control link. And the last but not the least, enable it. I believe 10, but I don't remember off the top of my head. I can check for it, but I think it's 10. We will find out. I'll set this to 1, and then we won't set it on the second one. They'll tell us what the priority is. You guys okay with this? So I'll go ASA1 and paste it. It says these commands, these inspections that you have are not supported with clustering. Are you okay with that? To remove these commands, I'll say yes. Done? You can check the information about the cluster by doing show cluster info. Primary, it's in state election. This is my IP address. Everything looks good. Good so far, guys? Other members in the cluster, there are no other members in the cluster. What do I need to do on the second box? So this was on ASA1. I'm going to do the same thing on ASA2 with subtle differences. I did bring the interfaces up, so I don't need to do that over here. The interface was no shot. But I do need to do what? The name needs to match the group name. The local unit needs to be different. The IP address, same network, different IP. Do you see that? So every device will have a different what? IP address assigned to it. Priority, I'm going to leave off. And then the key, Cisco enable. Not because it's called primary, because of the priority. That's just a name. I could have called it ABC if I wanted. It's like a host name. So now on the second box, this guy should be, this is primary, is in state election because the other one is not up yet. So I'll do the same thing over here. When I press enable, oh, I guess there is no default, so I have to set the priority. That's why I didn't remember ever not doing it. Detected the cluster master, beginning the replication from the master. Guess what? On the ASA, this is primary and state master. Other members, there's a unit called secondary. It's still doing what? The sync. Understood? So show cluster info. Still doing it. There you go. Disable to slave. That's a good thing. That it's up and running. Now from this point on, all your configuration. The tiebreaker is the one that has been up the longest. So right now, my clustering is set up. I need to do all my configuration from this point on where? On the one that is in the state called master. Everybody okay with this so far? Now that this is done, before I do anything else with what? The ASA configuration, I'm going to go to my switch and set up my port channel. Which ports do you think I need to set up as a port channel on the outside switch? Port channel, both of them, right? These two will be the port channel on the switch side. Now, normally, how do I do a port channel on the switch? So I'll set that as your second step. So step one, you guys are okay with, right? Step two now, configure the port channel on the switches. And I have two switches. I'll call this switch outside. So E00 and E01 on switch outside should be what? A port channel. I'll put that port channel in VLAN 20 along with R5's port, which is this guy. I'll put that also in VLAN 20. How do I do it? Normally speaking, I would do this. VLAN 20, interface range E0/0 and 1, channel group, give a number. I'll just match the 20. Doesn't have to be, it could be any number. Say 22, just so that you guys know. Mode active, which is LACP, no shut to bring the interfaces up. And then I would go under my interface port channel 22. And over here, I would say switch port, mode access, switch port, access VLAN 20. You guys okay with this? You guys understand that? That would create my port channel, but I'm not done yet. I also need to put my other interface, which is R5E00. R5E00 is connected to port 2, also in VLAN 20, so all those can talk to each other. Normal switching over here. I'm not doing anything special over here. You guys understand that? Any questions on this, guys? On a normal physical switch, this is all you got to do. But I have an issue over here. The issue that I have is the EVE-NG switch that you have. I'll go to switch outside. When you do the config, I'll call it switch outside, so we know which switch we're on. When I do this, normally anything that you do under the port channel is automatically replicated under the member ports. Member ports being what? E00 and E01, right? In this case over here, for some reason, it doesn't put the two commands where? Under the interface. So on the EVE-NG switch, you would need to do the assignment of the ports, the switch port mode access and switch port access VLAN manually. That's okay. Let it give you the error. This is not something that you would face in a normal environment. What I'm looking for over here is this config. And this happens automatically on a physical switch. Under the port channel, whatever commands that you guys have would automatically put under the member ports, which are E00 and E01. Under the physical interface, along with the two commands that are common, you would also have the channel group name over here. You guys see that? So you should have three commands where? Underneath the physical ports, two commands over here under the port channel. This happens automatically on a physical switch. On EVE-NG, this is an issue that they have. Nothing to do with clustering, is just the issue that they have with this virtual switch or switch on EVE-NG. You get my point? So I'm not going to put this on your config. I want you guys, because I want the config to be generic for a physical working environment. It's just on EVE that you would need to do what? Assignment of the VLAN and mode access manually under the physical interfaces as well. It doesn't happen. Good so far, guys? On the outside, any questions on the outside? Now, how about the inside? What do I have on the inside? On the inside, again, I have E00 and E01, which will be in VLAN 20. I want to set that up as a port channel. And I'm going to put E02, which is connected to R6 over here in the same VLAN, VLAN 10. Same thing that I did on the outside, I'm going to repeat it on the inside. VLAN 10. Let's put this as 11 just for the heck of it. I don't want you guys to think that it has to be the same number as your VLAN, although I recommend it in real life, but just don't want you guys to think it is the same. Good. You guys know what's going to happen with the switches, right? The switch ports. The physical switch ports will not have the mode access and access VLAN 10 command. That gives an issue. So you would need to do it manually. So on the inside, again, host switch inside, basic commands, check it. Notice these two commands are missing under E00 and 1, so I'll manually put them in. Ignore the messages that it gives you after that. It's okay. As long as your end result configuration looks like this. Understood? Clear so far? Now, the actual configuration of your ASAs for the clustering, where is that done? Which device? The master, which in my case is ASA1. You can check that. This is primary in state master. What configuration do I need to do? Let's take a look at the topology over here. Which is my outside interface, guys, over here? E01, which should be on the 20 network, correct? E1 actually, right? It's on the 20 network. I'm going to give it an IP address at .11, right? Now, before I do that, I need to make sure he's done the port channel over here. I need to do my port channel over here, but I don't need to do it on both sides. Take a look at how I'm going to do the port channel on the ASA. So that's the third one now. Configure the port channel on the ASA and configure the interfaces. We'll do both at the same time. So this is all done on the master only. So interface E1. When I say interface E1 on the master, I'm not just pointing to what? This E1. It's pointing to all the E1s, even if I had 2 or 3 ASAs in this cluster. You get my point? And over here, under the interface, I'll say channel dash group, whatever number, let's say 20 for the outside, mode active, no shut. You guys understand what I did? So where's this port channel? Single port. No, it's not a single port. It's E1 of all the different cluster members. So if I had 4 cluster members, this is E1 of all 4 cluster members. I've taken care of the switch on the other side. I'm now taking care of all my cluster members over here. Similarly, which is my inside interface, it is Ethernet 2, right? So what do I do on Ethernet 2? Let's call it port channel or channel group 10. You understand what I did, guys? I've created my port channel. I don't need to do a range command because E1 on all the interfaces will be now in a port channel. Somebody pointed that out earlier on, so that whatever I do on the master gets replicated. Guess what? You see what that thing is, that the E1 should be connected to the same side, because my configuration, whatever I do on E1 is going to be replicated to all the E1s. Clear so far? Now my config, where? My config on my interfaces. Now I'm not going to do the config on E1. I'm going to do the configuration on where? Interface port channel 20. What is port channel 20? That's the outside interface. You guys remember? E1 is on the outside, E2 is on the inside. So port channel, which is all the E1 interfaces, okay? The first thing that I need to tell it is that it's a port channel that spans a cluster. So that tells this device that this port channel is not a single, it's your VPC basically. A virtual port channel which is spanning multiple devices, spanning the E1s of all the different cluster members. Then it's recommended that you give it a virtual MAC address. Then you do your normal configuration that you would do on an ASA. This is your outside, so it would set the security level to 0. Give it an IP address 192.1.20. What did I set it to? I'm using .11s as my address. And I don't need to put the mask if I don't want to, because the default mask. Understood, guys? Same thing for what? 10, which is the inside. Let's use BBB over here. This is your inside 10, 11, 11. Is that right? 10, 11, 11, 10, or 11. There you go. You get my point, guys. Everybody understand this? This is how you do your port channel across the cluster. Yes, thank you. Why the mask? Because this one is a /24, otherwise it would take a /8. Now I can copy it. Go to the master, paste it. Good. Everybody understand this so far? Now the rest of this config, there's no difference. You do it normally the way you would configure it. What do I mean by that? Configure the ASA normally. Where though? On the master. The PC will only have one by default, meaning I didn't get that, Jonathan. The default gateway will be pointing to either 11 or 20.11. Is that what you're saying? They would see it as a single device. It uses a physical MAC, but see what it says. Warning, it is strongly recommended to configure a virtual MAC address for a span cluster interface or all its sub-interfaces in order to achieve the best stability of span cluster. It's just during the join of the messages, it'll be a little quirky if you don't. It sometimes causes it to flap if you don't. Otherwise, it uses the physical MAC. So this is done. Now the normal stuff, like what? Route outside, 00, 20 dot, need to check. Oh, I don't have a config. Let's create a config and paste it. Simple config. No, default gateway will not be .5. I'm on the what? On the ASA. I need to point the default gateway on the ASA towards R5. So 20.5. Let's do this real quick. En config T, no IP domain dash lookup, line con 0, log sync, no exec. Timeout, I'll save it so the next time around I don't need to do it. That part is done. Host is R5. Interface E0/0. 20.5. And line VTY for testing purposes. Cisco login transport input all. Should be good enough. Copy, go to R5, save it. And on R6, which is the inside device, (11.11.6). I'll use a default gateway on the inside. Think about this being like a PC. oops, what did I put it as 11, right? Make sure. Yeah, 11. The rest is all good. I should be able to ping 10, 11, 11, 11 at this point. Who's 10, 11, 11, 11? That's the virtual IP of the ASA firewall, and R5 should be able to ping 20.11. Clear so far, guys? So the rest of the stuff, 20.5 is my default gateway on the outside. Let's do object network, pool A, range 192.20.51 through 20.200, good enough. Object network. NAT, inside, outside, dynamic, to a normal stuff, guys. Understood? And I would do it on the master. Just make sure you are the master. There you go. This is the master. Paste the config. Now to test it, I'll go to router 5 on the inside, do a telnet to 20.5 on the outside. I'm in. Show users. I should be one of the users from the, oh no, I telneted in from this device. I need to do it over here. I was like, wow, that was quick. Ooh. See, there was a slight pause in there, and that was like not there when I did it initially. I was like, oh, good, that's good. 20.52 from the pool. And your cluster is working like a champ. Clear, everybody?